Before you start a current tutorial video, we are making the assumptions which you must satisfy before you continue with the tutorial series. Assumption number one, you have already created an educational GitHub account. For you to create private repository, it's really important that the GitHub account you apply was educational. And always when you create your lab work, it must be under the private repository so you don't share your work with others. And number two, you have already understood the basic principles of the GitHub from the tutorial series that we actually sent you a link about from the course website. And also, optionally, you can also install the GitHub desktop program for you to keep in sync your work with the GitHub server. Okay, if you have doubts, you can go to this particular tutorial link for details. Okay, now for this current tutorial video, we're going to show you a simple workflow for you to actually create a private repository for your ECS 1021 lab workspace from the web browser. Okay, specifically, we'll show you exactly how it will work on your lab account, and also how you can clone your private repository that you just create using a terminal on your lab computer into the desktop. And then we'll show you how you can create a new Java project using the Eclipse program. And then we want to show you some simple changes you can make, like creating a new class or making some changes to some existing class on your newly created projects. And then, most importantly, you want to make sure before you leave the lab computer, in which case you will be logged off and also all the work will be wiped off. So before you actually leave your lab computer, you want to make sure everything is committed and pushed to your GitHub server. In order to do that, you need to learn about three simple commands that you have to always execute in the following sequence, which we'll show you. Okay, that's also to be done in a terminal. And then finally, you want to make sure before you leave, you want to verify all the changes have been pushed to the GitHub server. Okay, we'll show you all the workflow. Make sure you exercise this workflow faithfully every time you go to the lab and do your work and before you leave. Let's now switch the context to where you will log in to your lab computer. So it will look like a typical desktop like this. So now what I want you to do is to open up a web browser, for example, Firefox. What you can do is you can go under application and then go under internet and then go for Firefox. Okay, once you click on that, this is what you will see. And now, assuming that you already got a GitHub account, you can simply go to github.com. So type this address URL on the address bar and then hit on enter and log in with your credential for the GitHub. Okay, assuming that you're there, so now what you can do is you can just go to this icon over here on the top right and then choose for your repositories. Okay, look at that. You might have some repositories already, or you simply just empty. Doesn't matter. Okay, so what we want to do is to create a new private repository. So what we can do is we can click on new over here, and then so this is your username for the GitHub account, and then we want to give a name for the repository. So this is going to be the workspace for all your ECS 1021 lab work. So what we can do is we can say ECS 1021 lab workspace, for example, or you just want to call it workspace, it doesn't matter. Okay, let's call it workspace. And then description, okay, we can see Java projects for ECS 1021. Okay, and most importantly, you want to make sure you don't share this lab work with the rest of the world. This is really crucial to make sure you maintain academic integrity. So you will click on private over here. Okay, it's really important you click on private. Okay, and then you may want to initialize the repository with a README so you can have some proper documentation for your projects. But we'll do. I'll leave you with that. And then you can say create repository. Okay, so now it's done. Initially, the repository is simply called ECS 1021 Lab Workspace, and it's simply just empty, which is very straightforward. Okay, so what we want to do now is every time when you arrive in the lab, you might be using a different workstation every time. So what you want to do is you want to first of all clone what the current states of your lab workspace on the GitHub server onto the lab computer. Okay, let's see how we can do that. So you'll simply click on clone or download, and then you can see there's a URL over here. You can simply click on this icon over here, which will copy this particular address. Okay, which we were gonna do. Okay, so what we'll do now is we're going to just minimize the browser just for now. Okay, we'll put it back later. Okay, what we want to do now is to do some little bit of work on desktop. So we want to open a terminal so that we can enter commands in order to manipulate the GitHub. Go under applications and you might see terminal already. If not, you can also go under applications and then utilities. You can also see terminal. Okay, let's go back to favorite and then say terminal here. Okay, that's a terminal. You just have to type something which I will show you in just a moment. Let's open up something that will be also useful for you. You can also go under places over here on the top and go to home. Okay, so this is the home directory you have just logged into, and you can see that there's a folder over here called desktop, which is exactly over here. Okay, you can also see the shortcut here, desktop. Okay, click on that. The only thing we have is the logout button here over here. Okay, you might have other things as well, but we're gonna clone our GitHub repository right to the desktop. Okay, how do we do that? Let's go back to the terminal over here. So always you want to make sure you're really on the desktop on the terminal. How do we make sure? You can just go for CD, which is a command standing for change directory, and then tilde standing for the current home directory you have just logged into, and / for constructing a path. Okay, / and then we want to say desktop. Okay, and then we hit enter, and now how do we know we are really on the desktop? You can say pwd. It tells you indeed currently we are really under this particular user on the desktop folder. Okay, and then what's really on the desktop? You can say ls for listing all the files, and then you can see the only thing we have is the logout icon over here. Okay, nothing exciting just yet. So what we want to do now is we want to clone the repository that we just created on the web. So now we want to say git, type this verbatim, git clone, and then we can go to edit and paste. So this is the URL we just copied from the web browser. If you have lost that, you can go back to the web browser over here and you can see this is clone or download from your web browser, and then you can just click on this button here for copying to the clipboard. Okay, then let's minimize that. Okay, so now you're gonna hit that, and now it's going to ask for your credential. Okay, you're gonna type yours. I'm gonna type mine. Okay, the username and the password. Okay, you can see it's done, and then indeed, so this is the folder we have just created, and you can see that over here the only file that's in there is README. How do we go the same? How do we say we want to go into that particular folder on the command line? So what we can do is, because we now pwd, we're currently on the desktop, but we want to go into that particular folder. First of all, we see ls. It tells us we are indeed, there's one folder on the desktop. So how do we go into it? Again, use CD, standing for change directory. CD, EECS, you can also hit on tab. Okay, that will also bring you there. Okay, EECS 1021, lag workspace. Okay, so now we are there. So if you see pwd, it tells you not just on the desktop, but the subfolder on the desktop called EECS 1021 lab workspace. Okay, now if you say ls, it tells you that the only file you have, as you can see, is the readme.md. Okay, the readme file. Okay, let me just clear out a little bit. You can say also clear, so you're now back to the top of the terminal. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to create, so this will be the workspace you want to work on for each of your lab projects. You can imagine that for each lab or for each exercise you would like to do by yourself or you're assigned to, you can just create a new project over here. So you can imagine eventually by the end of the semester you're going to have many folders over here. Each folder corresponds to a particular Java projects or particular lab. Okay, let's see how we can create a project. So now everything we're going to do now is going to be on your lab accounts. Eventually, before we leave the lab, we're going to commit and also push the updates for today onto the web server. Okay, that's what we'll do. But let's do some simple changes, and especially you want to know how to create projects. Okay. So now we want to open the Eclipse programming environments for Java. Okay, so there are different ways for you to launch the Eclipse. It's really up to you. You can either go under applications and go under programming and you can search through and you should see Eclipse there. Or if you want to stick to the command line, you can simply type Eclipse. Okay, in the command line, you can type eclipse verbatim and put an ampersand over here. It's really important to put that. Okay, that means to run the eclipse program in the background so that we once we hit enter, we can still do something on this current terminal. We don't have to open a new terminal. Okay, hit enter, and that is going to open eclipse right now. Okay, just wait for that. And now for the workspace, so this is some default location that we want to change. Okay, so go to browse, and we simply go to desktop, and remember this workspace that we just cloned from the web repository. Okay, you're gonna say OK over here. So make sure it's under your particular account's desktop, and then ECS1021 lab workspace or whatever name you have called your repository. And then we're gonna say launch. Okay, it's gonna take some time for Eclipse to initialize your workbench, and then we're gonna discuss. Okay, in case this happens, you can just say wait. Okay, so now let's maximize Eclipse over here. And now, of course, there's some tutorial over here. You can feel free to study them if you like, but I'm going to show you the basic features. You can go to Workbench over here. But for the current tutorial, I'm not going to show you exactly the tips for manipulating the Eclipse. I'll do that in a later tutorial video. For now, I want to show you something so that you know how to keep in sync between the lab computer and the web GitHub server. Let's just create something new. Okay, what I want you to also pay attention to, actually, let me unmaximize it, and then I want you to pay attention to what we are doing now. You can see now under the workspace, nothing here. Okay, and we want to create a new project. Let's say create new, and then I would simply say new Java projects. If you don't see Java projects over here, you can just go to other, and then you can see Java projects over here. Okay, if you don't see Java project here, you can simply type and just say Java projects. Okay, that's what you'll see. And make sure you choose Java projects and then say next, and you have to give a name. Let me just give a very standard name for the very first project. You can call my first project or Hello World. Let me just call it Hello World. Hello World. That's the very first project. Okay, everything else leave the same, leave as default. And then I would say finish. You can see that as soon as I will say finish, it's going to create a new folder for this particular project, right? So you can imagine that later, maybe each lab, you got 1 or 2 projects or even more projects associated with each lab. But all the projects will be stored under this particular workspace. Okay, so it's going to be associated with the Java perspective. You just say, remember my decision. That'll be enough. Okay, you can say open perspective. Okay, so this is the only projects we have over here. I will explain a little bit more about how you can have a better view of the various panel in later video. But now I just want to show you how you can make changes, okay, and then reflect them back to the GitHub server. Let's do that. Okay, so at the moment we don't have anything yet. You can see under Hello World, nothing here. So under each project, there's a difference between bin for executable and also source. This is the folder you want to pay attention to. Go into source. At the moment, it's simply empty. Okay, so what I would do is I'll create a new Java class. So right click on the source, and then you can say new, and then I'll say class. I want to create a new Java class, and then I can simply say, let's say Hello World. Okay, and then please click on this particular box to say I want to generate this main method, which I'll also explain in later video. But for now, just do it. Okay, and then we'll say finish. Okay, so this is some Java code over here. So what I want you to type very quickly is type the following verbatim: system.out.println. Okay, I want to print something to the console. Okay, I would say hello world 1. Okay, there's a reason why I choose a particular identifier. I'll change that later. Okay, but for now, just hello world 1. Okay, so you can see there's a star over here. That means the file is unsaved. You want to save it, so Control S. Okay, save it. Make sure there's no star over here. And then right click on this particular class and say run as Java application. Okay, you can see on the console over here we got hello world 1. Let's say this is what we want to do for today, or at least like an intermediate checkpoint. So you can feel free to really commit and push the changes back to the server for as many times as you like during the lab session. You don't have to just do a single commit and push at the end. You can always do intermediate checkpoint, making sure all your work is back up on the GitHub server before you leave. Okay, let's say now we don't want to leave yet, but we want to check, want to commit. So what should we do? So So now let me just move the Eclipse IDE a little bit to the left. Let's go back to the command line. How about just minimize that? Okay, so now we are, make sure we know where we are. So if you say pwd, so now always make sure you are in the ECS 1021 lab workspace. So if you're not there, do the following. You can say cd, tell that for the current directory, and then desktop, and then ECS 1021 lab workspace. Okay, make sure you're there, and ls, you can see this is the new folder we have just created over here, hello world. Okay, so now what should we do? First of all, so there are 3 small steps you have to do at one go. I'll show you all the 3. Okay, make sure you always do all 3 in the following sequence. First of all, we want to say git add star. What this will do is simply just going to add everything we have done so far into the local GitHub repository. Make sure they are included in the change list. Okay, do that first. Okay, make sure this is really crucial. Git, add, and star. Okay, with spaces in between. And then we're going to commit our changes to the local GitHub clone. And then we're going to say git commit. Okay, make sure you type verbatim git commit. And then we say -m standing for messages. So now we can say some log message. You can say created a new hello world projects. Okay, and then hit enter. Okay, so now basically it tells you that it simply just commit to the local GitHub server. Okay, the local copy only. But now we want to do one final step. We want to push the commits. So now we can say git push origin and master. Okay, and then click on enter, and now you gotta enter your credential again. Okay, let's do it. I enter yours, you enter yours. I enter mine, you enter yours. Okay, and the password. Okay, just wait for that. Okay, and now it will say that it's being done. So what we want to do now is to go back to the web browser over here. If you simply say want to refresh, you can say Control R for refresh. If you refresh, you can see that everything now has been reflected back to the browser, right? You can see hello world over here, and then you can see the source specifically, and then we got hello world. And this is exactly what we have done. And now you can safely leave the lab without losing your work. But now I want to show you one more change. Let's say rather than adding a new class, we want to change something to the existing class. And I want to also show you some common mistake. Okay? So what I want to show you now is, let's go back to the Eclipse. Okay, go back to Eclipse. Now let's go back to the same class over here. Let's say hello world 2. Okay, you can see the star over here. That means it's unsaved. I'm gonna save it. Okay, Control S. So the star goes away. Everything is saved. Okay, let's say that's the only change I would like to do. Hello world 1 to hello world 2. Okay, and then I will simply go back to the command line over here. Okay, you can minimize the Eclipse so it's cleaner over here. Okay, so now we are back to the command line over here. Let me just clear. Okay, remember if you say pwd, we are under the lab workspace. Okay, now first step, you want to add all the changes to the change list. Git add star. Okay, do that first. And now if I simply say commit, git commit -m, put some message, I can say changed hello world 1 to 2. Okay, from hello world 1 to hello world 2. And then I can say enter over here. Okay, so now one thing I want to show, if you forgot to push your changes back to the web server, this is what's going to happen. Let's say I'm still missing the final third step, which is to push. But let's now see, if I simply just go back there, do you think if I say refresh the browser, is this hello world 1 is going to be reflected back to hello world 2? Let's see. So now I'm going to say Control R for refreshing. Wow, you can see that hello world is still hello world 1, not hello world 2. Okay, make sure you really understand this common mistake, which means in the command line, I only did a add over here as a first step. I also did commit as a second step, but I'm still missing the third step, which is to push the local change to the global server. Okay, let's make sure we do that. Okay, I can say git push origin master. Make sure you type verbatim. Okay, and then I can say enter. And then gotta enter credential. So you enter yours, I enter mine. Okay. Okay, so now let's wait for that to complete it. Okay, it's now completed, and now let's go back to the web browser, and then after this third missing step, if you say Control R, you can see it's now being updated to Hello World 2. Okay, so that's a very simple workflow I would like you to really adopt. Let me just recap very quickly for you. Okay, so every time when you go to the lab, you want to make sure you have some command line window open. First of all, you want to open a web browser over here, and you want to make sure you clone the URL. So if you go to the top page for your project, the workspace, you can say clone or download, and then make sure you copy this URL over here. Okay, and then what you can do is you can open some command line over here. Let me minimize this. And for the first thing you need to do is to say git clone, and then just edit and paste whatever the URL it is. Okay, I'm gonna save that. You can watch the video again, and then you're going to have the clone version on the desktop, and then you're going to launch the Eclipse. And once you launch the Eclipse, you can make some whatever changes you like, adding new classes or change existing classes, whatever you like to do. And now at the intermediate points during your lab session, especially at the end, you want to really make sure you push the changes back to the server. So the way to do it, 3 steps. First of all, you're gonna say git add and start. Okay, number 1. Number 2, you want to say git commit -n. You can put some messages over here to actually say what changes you have done. That's number 2. And the third step, most importantly, is to make sure whatever local changes you committed is also pushed back to the GitHub server. Okay, you're gonna say git push origin and then master. Okay, so these are the 3 steps you must make sure you execute in this particular sequence. Don't miss any step, and don't reorder. You have to follow exactly this order over here. Okay, so make sure you're comfortable with this particular work flow, and that's something you assume to be able to do for all the future lab sessions.